anyway, it's really my just greatest pleasure to be able to introduce this evening's guest speaker, and he really requires no introduction to this crowd. But first, before he begins his presentation, I would really like to have Larry come up and accept from the Chem Club board and stewards and those that preceded us just a token of our appreciation for his true support of this organization, which is really all geared towards communicating the Rohm and Haas message. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you like me to take that back?
Maybe if you could
Okay, thank
keep
you.
it in safekeeping for just a minute. Maybe I could start tonight by saying a couple of words about Chem Club. This has been an important forum for me throughout my tenure as chairman and CEO, and I've used it to talk about the company, my ideas about a whole series of events. I think I probably appeared before this body more than any other individual but Vince Gregory. So it has been an important forum for me, and I'm honored by Debbie, you and your officers, and the plaque and the recognition. So thank you very much. As Debbie said, and I think it's on the plaque and every advertisement for this event tonight, this is the last time I will talk to Chem Club. And don't be scared. I'm not going to wax nostalgically about my tenure as chairman or my career with Rohm and Haas. I hopefully will give you, maybe as we go along, some insights, maybe about myself, maybe about the company, maybe about the industry. Because I have been around a long time. I've been with the company 33 years. It'll be 34 years in October. And, pardon me, August. 33 years in August. 34 years in August. And a lot of change in that time. I was 29 years old when I came to work with the company. I had two small children. Larry was 4. Alex was 1. And in the intervening years, a lot has changed. I'm now 63. Both of them finished their educations, have their own careers, started their families, and I'm a grandfather twice over. I'm very proud of the fact that I'm still married to Barbara, whom I met in college. Hope she's proud that she's still married to me. In fact, my relationship with Rohm and Haas is about the only relationship that's lasted with me anywhere close as long as a relationship with my family. Now, what my plan for tonight had been was to talk a little bit about that relationship and something about history and things that I thought of, and then answer questions. But I saw how many questions we have, some very good questions. I think I can make all the same points with the questions, so let's just scrap the remarks, go to the questions, and Debbie, come up and fire away. What would you like to say?
Where are you more comfortable?
Doesn't matter. Wherever you like.
Great. Before you begin, let me tell you, I did this all myself.
Oh, great job.
I'm only teasing. Well, Larry, we received in a good number of cards from the folks in the audience, and I think this one is probably very appropriate. And actually, there are two here that are very similar, so we'll ask both at the same time. And you'll like this a lot. It reads, "Congratulations. The company seems to be doing very well. But how's your golf game?"
Okay. So both questions are going to...
Well, the second question is, where do you expect your golf game to be a year from now?
Okay. Well, my golf game never changes an awful lot. I sort of in the mid-80s, have aspirations to do better. And so certainly my aspiration for this time next year to have a single-digit handicap, which would put you down around high 70s, low 80s, But I think golf may be like raising children. You always think you're going to be better tomorrow, better at it next week. Hope springs eternal.
Yes, yes. Okay, this one is just a bit tougher. What was the hardest decision you ever had to make?
Well, in the course of a career, you make a lot. Maybe I could reflect on a bad decision, a tough decision, which led to a good decision. As many people here know, I grew up in a small farming town in Mississippi. There were basically two occupations in that town, farming and selling things to farmers. So I thought there had to be a better way, and I thought a career in industry or manufacturing would be something I would like. So I set out on a plan, and whenever I had a choice, I did something I thought would lead to a career in manufacturing. So I studied engineering in college. It came to a choice in the Navy. I applied for the Civil Engineer Corps, was accepted. And when I went to Harvard Business School, the courses I took, I thought would help me lead for a career in manufacturing. Then in my last year there, I was approached by a friend of mine, a lawyer from Philadelphia, who asked me to join him in a venture capital firm. And he had arranged financial backers who would actually pay us to look for companies. And the idea was that we would find operating companies, buy all or some of them, fix them up, take them public. And I decided to do that. I think I was really probably seduced by the idea I could skip the normal steps in a business career and start out at the top. And I made that decision against a lot of advice, some of it by Barbara. And that turned out to be a very bad decision, because at the end of the year, first year, we had found nothing in which to invest. And I said cynically at the time, anything we can afford to own, we don't want to own. And at that point, we decided to take over a failing startup company. And we were undeterred by the fact that a person with a lot more experience than we had not been able to make a go of it. But we were confident we could, and that was a second very bad decision, because in spite of working incredible hours and doing every job in the book, we couldn't get that sucker off the ground. Mm-hmm. And so we closed up shop, and it was a failure. It just didn't work right.
Mm-hmm. So it was a total failure.
Total bust.
So what did you do then? Where did you go?
Well, that's sort of where the tough decision had to, you had to eat some crow at this point and say, I've just started my business career with two very bad decisions. And maybe I better revert to my previous plan, go out and get a real job, mm-hmm. and have a normal business career. And that was when I looked at my options and decided to join Rohm and Haas. It was a great decision, and all was well that ends well.
Boy, that's good news for us. Good news for us. Okay. These are the questionnaires' words, not mine. Mm-hmm. I still have young children. Mm-hmm. Did you know Old Man Haas?
Well, I'm old, but not that old. He died, I think, 5.5 years before I joined the company. But I have had the honor over the years of knowing a lot of the Haas family, mm-hmm. certainly working with Otto and John Haas, from whom I learned a lot. And what I know about old Mr. Haas, I really learned in reading the history of Rohm and Haas. And one of the things I did learn that he was involved in all facets of the business. He traveled to Europe about every other year, up until the Second World War, looking for technology, and he was very successful at that. He liked to visit customers, spent time with customers, liked to visit with employees, and visited plants and offices. And I've tried to be very involved as well. I've visited every plant in our network but two. I've tried to get to know our largest customers. I certainly try to create opportunities to talk with employees. And looking back on it, I wish I'd even done more of that. Through Cefic, and the CMA. I tried to be on a first-name basis with the leader of every major chemical company in the world. So I really tried, in some ways, to emulate Mr. Haas's example. He was a very visible leader, and I've tried to be a hands-on leader as well.
Thank you. What is the biggest change you have seen since you joined Rohm and Haas?
Okay. I think it's the level of our aspirations. When I think back on it, for virtually the entire time I've been with Rohm and Haas, our unspoken objective was probably to be the best of the U.S.-based mid-sized chemical companies. In reflecting back in, say, 1993, when we rededicated ourselves to operating excellence, I didn't even say that to myself, but in reflection, I think that's what we were thinking about back at Hershey at that time. And we were very successful at that effort. And the success meant we were generating lots of financial resources. So about 1996, I think we, and me among the top management, figured out we could raise our aspirations. We could really break out from being the best of the mid-sized companies and really be one of the best of maybe a very large chemical company. And we set out at that point to look at all of our options because we realized that the most likely way to do that would be through a major acquisition. And we looked at virtually every possibility we could think of. And a little less than a year ago, when we began to sniff the possibility that it might be possible for us to acquire Morton, we moved very aggressively. And it will make a huge difference. Towards the end of June, when we make this acquisition, we will be out of the pack of the mid-sized companies for sure. We will be among the largest, if not the largest, specialty chemical firm in the world. Among U.S. chemical companies, we will be only behind DuPont and Dow in terms of revenue or stock market value. So clearly we have moved away from the pack, and that was never clear to me. Then last week, Raj and Nancy Deshani and I called on 7 European companies over the course of a week, and it's clear that they look at us today differently than they have looked at us in the past. So not only have we broken out of the pack, I think we are seen to have broken out of the pack.
Yeah, that's very, very exciting. Larry, this question is not quite as upbeat, but it did come up on a number of cards. And this is the question. And it really relates back to the one we just spoke on. Seems like there are a lot of changes going on, not all of them pleasant. PwC in particular. Can you talk for a moment about the old Rohm and Haas? I think we're losing it.
Well, there are parts of the old Rohm and Haas that we should, and we must preserve. I'm thinking primarily about the values. If we think of integrity, that was certainly a bedrock value of the company as far back as I've ever heard. It certainly was a bedrock value when I got here and a bedrock value as I leave. And that, I think, has to stay the same. Then I'd say respect for individuals and treating people with respect and dignity. That's something that has always been very important to me. Respect for the environment. We've been a world leader in that regard, and certainly going to continue down that path. Customers. A lot of important companies depend on us, and we've got to do the right thing by them and delivering value for the shareholders. And no matter how big nor how successful we become, I think we have to hold true to those values. One thing that I have liked and admired about Rohm and Haas has been a sense of intimacy. I think we tend to be more connected one to the other than is typical for most industrial firms. And I certainly have enjoyed the camaraderie, fellowship. And I know Raj and Mike will want to preserve this going forward, but it is going to be more difficult because as of last December, we had 11,000 employees. At the end of June, we will have 23,000 employees. So preserving that sense of intimacy, it's going to be much more difficult, I think, going forward than it has, but it's certainly worth a tremendous effort to do so. Now, with regard to the PwC study, to me, what that provides us really with facts, benchmarks, and a series of options that we, the Rohm and Haas management, can decide to accept, reject, modify, and do whatever we think makes sense. And I think that really it follows on very naturally upon our effort to improve the supply chain, which we've been at 7, 8 years. We've been highly successful. And I just looked at this as an extension of the same kinds of efforts. And productivity, to improve productivity, was a mandate last year, this year, it will be next year. I think it's with us forever if we're going to survive in this business. And certainly I've come to realize that change is just a necessary condition of business. And Rohm and Haas in the year 2000 is going to be different than it was in 1990. As in 1990, we were different than we were in 1980 or 1970. But the values in 1990 were the same as the values in 1980. And I think in the year 2000 and beyond, we ought to maintain the same values.
Speaking of change, here's one about our future. Why did we choose to acquire Morton? Why not someone else?
Well, in the couple of years when we had to review our options and things that we might do, Morton was a standout on several dimensions. One, it was just an outstanding, or is an outstanding fit with our portfolio. I'll come back to that one. Second, Morton is a very profitable company, generates a lot of cash. So those are characteristics that are Rohm and Haas as well. So the combination makes us a lot safer to pay down the debt that we're taking on to buy. And third, I think Morton was, is, and probably will be the largest pure-play chemical firm that's available for acquisition. Some people here have probably seen that booklet, Better Together, that describes the two companies in the fit.
Yes.
And remember right on the front piece there's a whole list of specialty chemical firms down the line. I think if you just run your finger down the line of all of those companies, Morton will stand out both for its quality and for its size. So it really makes it a powerhouse company. And it adds to our position in polymers, plastic additives, biocides, and electronics. And out of this, we have very large businesses in coatings, adhesives, electronics, and salt. And so it's a really terrific portfolio, a focused portfolio. And I might say one word about salt. I think in one of your questions, I said, somebody asked, are we going to put the Morton girl in the Erlenmeyer flask?
Yes, I have that one right here. I do have that one right here.
And the answer, no. She will stay on the 26-ounce salt box.
Okay, great.
And going forward. But one thing I might say before, while we're on that, in the 2.5 months since we announced the acquisition of Morton, we've had ample opportunities to visit their sites, talk with Morton people. A couple of weeks ago, we had about 30 Rohm and Haas managers, about 30 Morton managers spend 3 days at Seaview talking about the portfolio. And I come away from that, and I think the whole management team in Rohm and Haas comes away even more enthusiastic about this acquisition than we were when we were negotiating it a few months ago.
Great. Okay, here's a question that was probably written by one of the more ambitious folks in the crowd. What does it take to get to the top?
Okay. Well, I think the first thing somebody might decide is whether they really want to get there. If you value an orderly and balanced life, say a balance among work, family, leisure, outside activities. If that's really valuable to you, probably don't want the job. If privacy is really important to you, probably don't want the job. But assuming you want, I mean, obviously people have to prepare. I think education, and that could take several avenues. And I think working on some skills, like writing ability, usually I think helps. Then I think you have to pay your dues. Mm-hmm. And the dues probably is a lot of long hours, a lot of travel, probably moving your family several times. So you've got to make sure you really want it. Then I think you really need to work on the traits that are likely to be make you successful as a leader. And the one I would think of first is the ability to earn people's trust. And that's the trust of people who work for you, the trust of people you work with, and maybe people for whom you work. And it's not just trust in your integrity. I think it's trust in your judgment, trust in your intelligence, and trust that you're going to be there when you need it. I think a second one would be the ability to form a realistic vision for the organization. One that may be a stretch, but is achievable. And you have the ability to enroll other people that they want to work with you in accomplishing that vision. And there's a certain toughness, and I don't mean tough being hard on other people, but I mean tough to handle failure, things that didn't work out right. Maybe resilience would be a better word. Then I think pattern recognition, because if you give any smart person all of the facts, and they have time enough to look at all the facts, that will make the right decision. But business seldom affords you the opportunity to have all of the facts. You're going to have to make a decision for them. And if you've developed the ability over the years to find patterns, and so you can fit the facts into a pattern and be willing to act with dispatch early when it still counts, and you'll make a lot more good decisions than bad. And then last but not least, and perhaps most important, is be lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time.
All good answers, all good comments. One last question. What's the best piece of advice you've received, and who gave it to you?
An easy one. My college roommate. He said, one of my childhood friends, Barbara Burroughs, is coming to Vanderbilt, and you ought to take her out. Debbie, before we wrap up here, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank a lot of people that helped me along the way. Now, I'm not saying goodbye now because I'm not done yet. We're going to close the Morton acquisition, and I'm going to stick around a while to get the integration process started. But when that's done, I am looking forward to handing the baton to Raj. I have been a senior officer of this company for over 25 years. I've been on the board of directors for over 22 years. I've been chairman and CEO for 11. So it is time to pass the baton. And I leave knowing the company is going to be in good hands. But I would like to thank people tonight because I know I'm not going to have an audience this large again. And first off, I'd like to thank the Haas family and the legions of people that came before me, before virtually everybody here, that really did the work and provided the great company we had, set the stage for all of us to have this great company to work for. Then I'd like to thank the leaders of the company in the early days when I was here, and really set it up for my generation of management. And certainly I was thinking of John and Otto Haas, Don Feli, and Vince. Many of you know that Vince was CEO for 18 years. What you may not realize that I worked directly with Vince for most of that time, I think 14 of the 18, so it was a good while. And certainly I'd like to thank my contemporaries. I worked with them, and I think we would take took the company that we were given, and we can be very proud of the company we're passing along. There are a lot of people to thank there, but certainly I'd like to mention Jack Maroney, Basil Vassiliou, and Fred Schaefer among them. Then I'd like to thank Raj, Mike, and their contemporaries, because they are going to make all these old guys I just talked about look good. And then I'd like to thank really all of you, and not just the people in the room tonight, but people throughout the company and my career. There are really thousands of people who have worked with me and my contemporaries to make this the great company of which we are so proud. Then I'd like to thank Gene and Kathy and Joan for keeping me straight for 22 years. In particular, special recognition to Joan, who's put up with me for 15 years, a very special friend. And last, to my teammate, girlfriend, best friend, and wife for 41 years, Barbara. Thank you. Good night. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.